All right, and we're back for another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glasser coming right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break. Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows. And if you can, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at the Lakers Fast Break, Laker Hall, and the Hoopheads Podcast Network, it is sincerely appreciated. Well, good news and bad news for today. The good news is that Anthony Davis returned to the lineup for about 15 minutes today, came back in the first half, looked extremely rusty on both ends of the floor. But you know what? I'm just happy to have him back as another player comes back into the rotation for the Los Angeles Lakers. But in Dallas, in the first game of a 2-game back-to-back set with the Dallas Mavericks, unfortunately, it was not enough as the Los Angeles Lakers fell to the Dallas Mavericks 115-110. And here today to talk about the game and possibly some catfishing when it comes to Laker podcasting, because I'll tell you what, that's been a source of extreme conversation out there in Lakers Twitter land, is some catfishing and Lakers podcasting. There's a lot of news covering that ground all week long. But here today to talk about that and also the game and how AD did is a good man indeed. You got to go ahead and check him out on his awesome articles that are on medium.com. And of course, he's the mastermind behind the place to go for all Lakers conversations, Lakerholics.com. It is Laker Tom, and Laker Tom, today was just not the day, even though you got great performances from KCP and Dennis Schroeder, solid performance from Andre Drummond on the boards, just not enough all around. It just didn't seem like they could get it together. They even had the lead at one point after a high-scoring third quarter. But again, their offensive problems reared their ugly head. The turnovers in the fourth quarter did them in, and unfortunately, it was not enough today.
Yeah, those turnovers were killers. There was a point in the game, I think midway through the third quarter, and I was looking at the stats, and the Lakers had 7 turnovers at that point in the game, which was just terrific. They ended up with 16, so there were obviously 9 turnovers in the second half of the third quarter and at the end of the game. I wasn't heartbroken that we lost the game. I thought Doncic played a great game. He's really a handful to handle. I thought that Caruso did a pretty good job on him most of the time. But he just is so big and strong for a point guard that he overpowers most players. And he's crafty in being able to do those step unders and combine that with a fadeaway, and it's almost impossible to stop the guy.
And the fact that he's a lob threat each and every time, the lobs that he was kept on throwing to Cauley Stein, Powell.
The same thing, too. You wish that there's certain players that really know how to dunk the ball when they get a lob. And one of the things that is really disappointing about Andre Drummond is that he just doesn't have the knack of being able to grab the ball from any spot around the rim and slam it through. There were a couple of lobs that he missed and so forth. I was encouraged by AD's performance. Naturally a little rusty. It was good to see him hit the deck a few times. I mean, that's always one of the things that concerns me about Davis's play, that he's always on the ground after plays, and the more times you fall, the more times you can get injured. I also thought Kenny played a terrific game. Dennis played a terrific game. Got a little tired at the end, and we lost the ball a couple of times on turnovers there. There's some good signs there. I think that Schroeder and KCP playing well is really an important sign, especially KCP, because he's shooting with confidence, and that's exactly what we need when we go into the playoffs. This is going to be a year like last year. I think the big thing in the Lakers' favor could be the simple fact that everybody in the league is getting beaten up and banged around with injuries, and the Lakers could have some good fortune in going into the playoffs like they did last year, after the suspension of the league and the big layoff, and only 8 bubble games before the playoffs start. The Lakers went into it with a fully healthy and rested AD and LeBron. And I think there's a good shot that we're going to go into that same situation this year. So I'm encouraged by that fact and also the fact that some of the key role players are now starting to play really well. I mean, there was a point where KCP or where Dennis Schroeder had 19 points and 9 assists and had not turned the ball over even once. He ended up with 4 turnovers at the end, and I think that was just trying to do too much, and coming from behind too much. This was a game of big swings. We had a 13-point streak, and they came back with a 10-point streak. We came out with a 9-point streak, and it was just one of those haymakers back and forth and see who could survive. I thought it was kind of hopeful when Porzingis sprained his ankle there that we might have come back, but Morris didn't have a great game shooting. You didn't see, Drummond ended up with a very positive plus 15, I think, in the plus minus. And yet I felt like he just didn't impact the game really well. I was interested in seeing him playing with AD, and I thought we could dominate the boards. We ended up, I think, losing 52 to 54 or something like that in points in the paint. So we at least held our own because we've been getting killed in the paint and in rebounding department the last few games. But we'll see what happens tomorrow night. Hopefully AD will come back, get his another 15-minute shot, or maybe
you mean Saturday.
Maybe they'll stretch him out to 20 minutes Saturday. And we need to win that game. We still got a 3-game lead over Portland and Mavericks now for that 6th or 7th spot, whichever it happens to be. 2-game lead now, actually, in the loss column. So, we need to win tomorrow night. We need to win Saturday. It comes down to that.
Well, it seemed like Andre Drummond was on a personal mission to go ahead and try and take out every member of the Dallas Mavericks because he was certainly impacting a lot. And I wasn't talking about exactly his basketball because it seemed like one play, injure a Maverick. Next play, injure a Maverick. Next play, injure a Maverick. So it was kind of funny how that was working out. But yes, I agree with you on, even though that the plus minus shows 15, I thought that he could have been a more impactful. I know grabbing the ball and getting that ball into the hoop was a lot of stuff right around the rim that he could have been more effective on. Yeah. I know that Kuzma did not look sharp tonight. I know THT, when we're riding the roller coaster known as THT, today was one of those days where we were going down on the roller coaster because he looked like he was 20 years old today, to be quite honest with you.
Right.
I mean, on both sides of the ball. Caruso struggled in the first half defensively, about the size, came back stronger, much stronger in the second half and provided a little bit more of a lift there. But yes, overall, the Lakers played okay. I think that you have to be somewhat satisfied that they were able to compete and actually in the lead in the third quarter after their, what you could say is their highest scoring third quarter period with this non-AD, non-LeBron combination. Yeah, I know AD was playing in the first half, but he was not there in that third quarter when they had that 39-point third quarter to get them back.
We actually played better without AD, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he was 2 for 10, and basically every time he went to the floor, they were having a 5-on-4 against us at the other end. It's one of the problems with, Harrell had a very difficult game again, and he's been in a difficult streak. He was like a minus 22 in the plus minus. And if you looked at that situation, that Frank is, I think the thing that the Lakers have to look at is who's going to play center. Once we get into the playoffs, if you go back and you look at the various people that we have paired up with Anthony Davis in the front court, starting with JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard, Marc Gasol, Montrezl Harrell, and now Andre Drummond. Of all of those players that have played next to him, the one guy who plays better with him on the court than any of those 5 guys I just listed is Markieff Morris. And the Lakers are going to need to have more of that. I mean, I don't care whether AD wants to play the center or whether he prefers to play power forward. but the Lakers are not going to win a championship unless he plays center. That seems very obvious to me from looking at the other three players that we have that are playing center that could go out there with him, or even a Kuzma or somebody like that at power forward. The simple fact is that Anthony Davis is our best center offensively and defensively. And I'm encouraged that Frank Vogel recognizes that. Last year, he put them in that situation so that you could really just count on AD performing well. And he came in and had a great series. And his playoff numbers historically, even when he was with the New Orleans, have been excellent. He's always played well. So there is a version of playoff AD that I hope we'll get in time to see. We all know there's a definite version of playoff LeBron that we're going to hope to see. I hope LeBron gets some games in. I guess the 4-week thing, or 2 more weeks from a while ago when they said he might be ready, would put him around May 1st. We have 13 games left, 5 more in April, and then 9 of them in May. So I'd like to see LeBron be able to get back for, maybe at least 6 or 7 games in May, so that he could hopefully be in shape for the playoffs, and hopefully the team can get together. I mean, last year, after 4.5 months off, with the suspension, you still had the same group of players coming back that were playing, back when the whole Rudy Gobert thing triggered the whole COVID situation. This year it's different because you got Andre Drummond coming in there, and whether you are a big Andre Drummond fan or whether you're somebody like Jamie and I who would like to see Marc Gasol be out there and starting those games and stretching the floor instead of clogging up the middle, the Lakers seem to be committed to Andre Drummond being the center that's going to play, and it's going to be he's going to be harder for Frank Vogel to decide to sit than it was with JaVale McGee or Dwight Howard. But I think we're going to see that same pressure as we move into the playoffs and the teams that we play. We're probably going to start off playing the Nuggets. They got a big center, and he shoots from outside, which creates a difficulty for him. I went back and looked at Drummond's record against Nikola Jokic, and it's funny. And back in 2017, 2018, there were a few instances where he dominated. He had like 25, 15 games against Jokic and held him to like 5 points or 9 points in a couple of instances. Last year wasn't the same. Last year, basically, and I think there was one game that they played this year before he got traded from Cleveland, where basically it was the other way around. The Nuggets killed the Cavaliers, and Nikola dominated Andre. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think a lot of it comes down to Frank Vogel really deserved almost Coach of the Year for the job that he did in the playoffs last year. And he's going to be challenged this year in the playoffs again. It's going to be a lot of tough decisions to make. I do think that he has sort of set the stage for that by his comments that because of the matchups, he expects all 3 centers to get playing time. I'm a little concerned about Harrell at this point in time because I would rather see I think we're going to still play 2 centers along with Anthony Davis in the 5. I don't think we can play 3 at the 5 at the same time. Somebody's got to sit out. And who that's going to be and in which series, that's going to be one of the big determining factors in who wins the championship this year.
Well, Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith have already counseled the Lakers out for this year. They said there's no way they're going to come back and win the championship. So there's 2 people on your list that go ahead and hopefully you will.
Well, that's almost a
maybe have some egg on the face as far as it's concerned.
Yeah, well, but the fact that Charles, that Chuck said the Lakers are going to be
that's
not in
true.
there.
That's true. What
That's
Charles
almost like
says,
a positive,
the opposite. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
the opposite
exactly.
does. Yes, the opposite. So hopefully that'll mean now guarantee that the Lakers will go ahead and win a championship.
Well, out of sight, out of mind. That's the problem. I mean, you look at this thing, do you realize that LeBron James has played as many games this year as Joel Embiid? And yet Embiid is like still in the MVP consideration, whereas LeBron has been just totally eliminated by everybody and out of it completely. Don't forget how good LeBron James is, how good playoff LeBron James is.
Well, we'll soon put that to the test, indeed.
Yeah.
Once again, the Lakers did not come out on top, just short in Dallas. First game of the back-to-back set, 115-110. They lose to the Dallas Mavericks. Hopefully things will turn around on Saturday. But before we head on out, I wanted to go ahead and talk a little bit about Lakers podcasting. Because we are a Lakers podcast that I actually know who I am guest hosting with, or I'm co-hosting with. I know when Laker Tom's here, I'm actually speaking to Tom Wong. When Jamie Sweet is, well, actually, maybe I'm not so sure about Jamie Sweet. Who knows about Jamie Sweet anyways?
I've met Jamie in person, so.
Okay, so you can vouch for him, even though we do think he's a little out there indeed.
Right.
But there's Sean Grice, great kid, kind of, he's out there in Canada. He's doing his crazy stuff in Canada. And, of course, L. Rob, we love so much here out of Detroit. And these guys are all great, have a great time indeed whenever they go and are on part of the show, plus all the guests that I usually interview as well. I know every now and then some of the guests that I have on don't want their persona on camera. So they, for that interview, turn it off, and I talk to them and have an interview. Do I actually know 100% it's them? You never know. But then again, it's not like I'm a Lakers podcast out there called the Lakers Point, because that host...
With just 3 episodes.
Yeah, with just 3 episodes. And the reason why that this small-time Lakers podcast is in such news is because the host of it, Josh Toussaint, and I got wind of this through you guys because I had no idea that this even existed. Okay, I know Sean and you and Jamie Sweet were all throwing stuff back at each other in regards to the emails and things of that nature. And I'm like, okay, what's all this about? Lakers Twitter was alive this week in regards to Josh Toussaint saying, looking for his host, saying that his host, Vivian Flores, was missing and also had cancer, leukemia to be exact. So I want to hear your thoughts on this. This turned out to be a hoax, at least on the Vivian Flores part. Vivian Flores, I'm pretty sure, I think, doesn't exist at all, is what I think the latest news is, and that they totally pulled the wool over Josh Toussaint's eyes and tricked him on that because he had never bothered to go ahead and actually meet face-to-face or speak face-to-face with Vivian on that. I just want to hear your thoughts on this whole Laker catfishing thing because it really caught Lakers Twitter by storm. And in Lakers fans, with Lakers fans, it's always about Lakers Twitter.
Well, it's a strange situation because Vivian was one of those personalities on Twitter that really did 2 things that made her very successful. First, she was a really hot-looking girl. Second, she was a Lakers fan. And third, she was on Twitter religiously, and relentlessly. And so they had a combination of a good-looking woman who loves the Lakers and is out there, supporting everybody and tweeting numerous times every day and so forth. She had a following of 16,000 Twitter followers. Now, that's not easy to accomplish.
Yeah, I know. Believe me, I
know. And so I can see Josh Toussaint. Josh Toussaint's a recent college graduate. Pretty sharp guy. He's a Laker fan. He's got around 5,000 followers, and he's built that up by
not too sharp if that's the case. Not too sharp.
But let me finish. He's built it up by developing good dialogue with people. I've had several conversations with him. He's always very respectful. He's pretty knowledgeable. He's got a good point of view. And, he's a guy that I think when he says something, it's generally mostly well-founded. Okay. So Josh decided that he was going to have a podcast, sort of like Lakers Fast Break.
No, we're actually a real thing, though.
So he looks around and he says, okay, who's not involved in a podcast? And geez, if I want to make it really successful, I ought to get somebody who's got a good following so that it'll, I can take their 15,000
That's a good point.
followers and add it to my 5,000. I might have 20,000 followers. And so, and she's been out there for 6, 7, 8 years, and everybody knows her. She's part of it. And so, all of a sudden, he gets a message from through her Twitter on a private message that's supposedly from her sister saying that she's disappeared. We can't find her, and she's basically been having these conversations with Josh that she's comes from an abused background. That's why she wouldn't show any pictures because of scars and so forth. And she's got leukemia, and so she's just lost her hair, etc. So you have a perfect setting for her sister to come out and claim that we're trying to find her. Can you help us? And so Josh,
don't forget the Photoshop. Don't forget the Photoshop.
So, I'll get into that. So actually, Josh was only the second person. There was some couple of other people that were in the same Twitter group who basically put out the thing, let's help her, I mean, they were almost ready to get a GoFundMe page, and seeing now, she's located, and Josh was supposedly drove in from Van Nuys into West LA looking for her car, which was supposedly a Bentley. But at any rate, you go back and you find out all of a sudden that it appears like when the detectives on Twitter started digging into the Photoshop things, they would find that here's a shot of her playing basketball in the Far East. And it turns out that you can actually search for photos that look like this, and you'll find the original photo of some girl in Asia playing basketball, and she's been Photoshopped and they've inserted her face. That technology has advanced pretty dramatically. You can substitute your face and it will follow through on motion. It's not like the stick faces that you see in some of the easy stuff. And, and then there's a shot of her graduating from college or high school, holding a basketball. And if you look close at the bottom, the basketball's got Olivia's name on it, not Vivian. And she misspells her name, Vivian with an I-A-N or Vivian with an I-E-N. And so pretty soon that whole thing has fallen apart. And Josh has been accused of, is he Vivian really, and so you don't know. It's an interesting situation, but a remarkable long ride for at least 5 years of building up her own body of followers in Twitter that reached 15,000. And what really amazes me is, how did it all self-destruct like that? You would have think that they would have been a little more careful and really got a GoFundMe page and really cashed it in. There was a couple of attempts where they came back after deleting the account. They reinstated the account, tried to make a couple of comments here and there, and claiming that she's a real person, et cetera, and the truth will come out and so forth. Poor Josh has been attacked by reporters left and right, and
KD got involved. KD got involved.
KD saw it. All sorts of celebrities got involved in just, it's the whole thing in Twitter. You find this all the time that people are looking for help and wanting to support other followers on Twitter who are Laker followers. It's a family, The Laker Twitter people feel that it is a family. Some part of the family can't stand other parts of the family and will attack them viciously without any hesitation, but it still is, and so it's turned into a remarkable story. I think half of the people believe that Josh Toussaint is Vivian, and the other half of them think that he was just totally stupid dupe to get pulled into the whole thing. I mean, I can't understand, for example, you and I having a podcast here, except that your side of the screen would be blank or my side of the screen would be blank.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I told you I have interviews with guests sometimes and they don't want to appear on camera. So they ask me in advance, can I go ahead and have the camera off? And I say, sure, no problem. Obviously I respect their privacy on that amount, but am I really talking to them? I'm pretty sure I am, but I'm not sure. Am I really talking to you, Laker Tom? Are you the real Laker Tom?
Yep.
Okay.
It could be a digital version of me that was created by somebody to, there's all these other wrinkles to it that Josh actually had a date with her next week in person. I don't think he thinks that's going to happen now.
Yeah, I would
and
say
also she sent him some nude photos of her that he found out were photos of a porn star that was fairly easily tracked down.
Okay. Yeah,
that's about the time when he claims that he started to really have concerns that she wasn't really real.
Yeah, I would say that that's the case. Yeah, it's gone off the rails, and Lakers Twitter was all abuzz earlier this week on it. So we can't not pass up this opportunity, because if Sean Grice was here, he'd be all over it. Gerald, I want to go ahead before we go on out. I want to talk about this. He would be going off on it, because that's what he was doing on our email all week long. So I wanted to go ahead and make sure I covered that. Plus, Lakers podcasting is also a buzz because I guess it's the largest volume Lakers podcast, Locked On Lakers. The host, Anthony Irwin, has left that position, which when I found out from someone, I was trying to jump all over it and have my resume ready before I was telling my daughter. And as soon as I was telling my daughter, I bet they got one of the Lakers one of the Lakers insider in crowd to go ahead and be hosting. But I'm just going to go ahead and, I can't put it in because they already got Brian and Andy Kamenetsky, who I credit their work a lot. I like their work. I cannot fault them.
They were the original Los Angeles Lakers, LA Times Lakers blog.
Yeah,
they ran that at one point in time, and then Eric Pincus did, and
I can't fault them. They're good, yeah. So I wish them all the success. Anthony Irwin, I know, was not. He was listened to by more than anyone else as far as Lakers podcasting. I can't say he was beloved by everyone in the Lakers. This goes back to Lakers Twitter again. If you read Lakers
his
Twitter,
podcasting was about equal with his basketball skills.
Yeah, I would probably say something a little bit worse, but I'm going to go ahead and rise above it, because I actually had told you this long time. I know you probably forgot, but I actually already said my piece off air on that. But again, we wish him the best as well. Yep. I want to go ahead and say no hard feelings, even though we have a better show here at the Lakers Fast Break. But it has been an interesting half hour indeed. Once again, the Lakers did lose 115-110. But before we head on out, I always got to give everybody an update on what you're working on at Lakerholics.com.
Well, I'm still looking at the situation involving the Lakers centers. Anthony Davis, I was very interested to see how Anthony Davis came back. And, it's going to be, as anybody who knows me and follows Lakerholics.com, I tend to be able to push various topics that I think are on my agenda. And I'm certainly going to be pushing the agenda that I want Anthony Davis to play center. I think that's going to be the key to the Lakers winning a championship. I hope that the comments that he's made in the past, that he's more than willing to play center in the playoffs, and that Frank Vogel's, the way that he's managed the center position in the playoffs, I don't think that there's any question that is the key. Last year we not only have what I think are two of the best offensive players in the league, in LeBron James and Anthony Davis as the team's superstars, but people forget that these are two of the best defensive players in the league, and two of the few superstars who will actually say, I'm going to cover Jimmy Butler, or I'm going to cover, so-and-so in a game, and I'll actually do that regardless of what the position they are. They're guys who are willing to guard 1 through 5, can do it at an elite level. And the whole key is if they are healthy and rested, then I think the Lakers are still got a good shot. I saw an estimate from somebody that the odds of the teams winning in the West were Lakers 55%, Clippers 25%, and I think it was 10 and 5% for the Suns and maybe, who else am I missing? The Suns and the Jazz. Right. And I think that's about right. The Lakers are, to me, seem to be by far the team that everybody is going to be worried about. assuming that LeBron and AD both are healthy and both have enough time. Last year, we found out that 8 games was enough time. So if they can have 8 games together this time, then I think that Lakers will be solid favorites to win the West and go into the East.
7 out of 8 lousy games. I'm just going to say that 7 out of those games were lousy.
7 of those games were terrible because we'd already locked up the number 1 seed true. And everything. But,
it was painful. It was painful.
Yeah. There will be some exhibition games going the rest of the way, assuming the Lakers can solidify themselves in the 4 or 5 slot. And I think they should have a good chance for it. The Nuggets. At some point in time, the Nuggets are going to feel and miss,
Jokic is playing his heart out. Jokic is playing his heart out. I think they're going to keep the number 4 spot just because Jokic is playing so
well, I think they've got a 3-game lead on us for that.
But
we've got a 2-loss lead. It doesn't really, to me, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't look like we're going to see full stadiums, full arenas, at least not in Southern California. Although California now has got the lowest amount of new COVID cases than any other state in the union, which is wonderful news if you live in California. I don't know how it is in Utah and other places like that, but we'll have to see. But I think that the Lakers just need to be healthy, and I think and have their role players playing well, and some of the key role players I think are playing extremely well. The way that Dennis is playing and the way that KCP is playing, that gives me a lot of hope that we could see another type of playoff run like we did last year. You never know until you get into that situation, but I'm optimistic about the Lakers. I wasn't really traumatized by tonight's loss. There's a point where we were 4 points away with a minute and a half to go, and we had the ball. Had we come down and made a shot and followed through with it, it would have been a game.
Yep.
Kuzma
makes that layup or Drummond puts that putback. That's all it took.
Yeah, that layup. I mean, Dennis was just tired, man. That was an easy layup. He had it all the way, and it just rolled off. And I would love to see Drummond, after having a whole year with the Lakers coaching staff, especially with Phil, to really understand how to grab the ball and dunk it. You watch some of the plays that AD does in dunking the ball, or even Willie Cauley-Stein at times, where it doesn't matter where that ball is, if the guy gets his hand out there on it and can corral it and direct it to the rim, it'll go down. And Andre just doesn't have that knack that, he's got the hops to do it. He's got the hops to do it. I don't know whether it's small hands or what it is, He's got quick hands, but they may not be big enough to really, dominate the ball and hold on it.
Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe you have to reserve everything to a certain extent just because LeBron's not in there. That's just like a jump shooter. If you get a lob to a guy right in his wheelhouse where he is capable of then taking and finishing that shot, just like a jump shooter can get it into his shooting pocket, and that helps him make that shot. Nobody does that as well as LeBron James does.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to see what happens on Saturday, as we will be here after the game on Saturday, after game 2 of a back-to-back set in Dallas against the Mavericks. We'll see if it works out better. Hopefully there'll be no catfishing. No catfishing until that time. I think I'm with Laker Tom here. I see Laker Tom, so I'm believing I'm with Laker Tom here on this show.
I've only posted once who is Gerald Glassford. So
okay. Well, the same thing. My wife has done the same thing as well, but I think she's done it more than once. But need I digress? Hopefully less catfishing in your life will take place, and at least in Laker podcasting is concerned, I hope for the same thing as well. But I'll tell you what, it was unfortunately another loss for the Lakers, 115-110 to the Dallas Mavericks. Yeah, we'll see if we can get it back on Saturday night. Laker Tom and I will be back. Who else will be with us? Will they be real? Will they be digitized? Will they be photoshopped? We're not sure.
Maybe we can get Vivian to join us.
Yeah, maybe we can. Or Josh Toussaint. Maybe we'll get it. Well, actually, maybe that would be mean. That would be mean because we would probably roast him to death here. So that would probably be mean.
Actually, I'm surprised that somebody hasn't invited to Josh to be on a show and then managed to come up with somebody to play the part of Vivian.
There you go. That would be awesome. But for at least for Lakers Twitter, that's for sure. But I would give the poor kid. Let's give the poor if it's real legit and he was actually burned. I'm going to give the poor kid a break.
I think he was actually duped in the whole thing.
Yeah.
He saw an opportunity. He saw an opportunity to run a podcast with an extremely popular Lakers personality on Twitter.
Well, you said it yourself. He might be a sharp kid, but he wasn't too sharp. He's a kid.
Well, he was also hoping to get a date with her, I think.
Yeah, well, you know how that goes. Unfortunately,
you could have bet out of the 16,000 followers, 15,000 were men.
Yeah, I would probably say that's the exact ratio. But yeah, just the fact that he's young, you make mistakes, you live and you learn, and that's why there's catfishing. Oh, well, but for us, there's no catfishing here. At least I don't think so. But we'll find out after the game on Saturday. It's, again, the Mavericks and the Lakers in a back-to-back. We'll be here right after the game on Saturday, right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast. Hopefully no catfishing.